We're back inside City Hall. State lawmakers say that they beat the budget deadline earlier this week, but did the process work, and is the fiscal plan a good one for New York State? Let's ask two people who closely monitor what's happening in the state capitol. We've got the Executive Director of Common Cause New York, Susan Lerner.
Hi, Earl.
And joining us from Albany, the Legislative Director for the New York Public Interest Research Group, Blair Horner. Good to see you.
Thanks for having me.
So now, let me ask both of you a question. As the budget vote was being taken, they cleared the chambers. In both the Assembly and Senate chamber, they said no visitors in the gallery. And as advocates of open, good government, you both are not all that happy with it, I gather.
Actually, I'd say I'm pretty outraged. And the symbolism is so strong that they really should have thought through what they were doing. Aside from the fact that it's unconstitutional, it's plain out wrong, it's bad political theater. What's the message that you're giving to the public? We don't want to hear from you.
Mm. And Blair Horner, the Capitol Police, their argument was that it was so noisy and there were so many demonstrators that they would have basically spent the whole night just arresting people out of those galleries.
Well, Ben, remember, it's the people's house. It's the taxpayers that pay for it. The taxpayers should be able to observe the proceedings as the law says. I mean, just to give you an idea about how they viewed it, early in the morning, they put a sign up outside the Senate chamber on one of the glass doors saying, legislators, staff, and lobbyists only.
Oh.
They clearly wanted to shut down the whole process to keep the public out.
So wait a minute. So if you'd shown a card, a business card showing that you worked for some special interest group, they would have let you in.
Well, I'm not exactly sure how it was going to operationalize, but that was the picture. That was the picture on the glass door, and they ripped it down as soon as one of the reporters got a picture of it and posted it on the blog.
As I said, the symbolism is really, really rich and all too revealing.
Mm. And is there any follow-up to this? I mean, you've certainly pointed it out. We, of course, are underscoring it tonight.
I think that there has to be, and we're looking at what possible remedies there are. You know, we need to be in touch with the Office of General Services. We need to be in touch with the state police that are in charge of the Capitol. I think there are a lot of things that we need to do, because what we in the public need is an assurance this isn't going to happen again. Mm. So first, let's give them a chance to say, okay, we get it. This was an error. We will have procedures in place to ensure that this doesn't happen again. Mm-hmm. And then we'll figure out if we need to do anything further.
You know, I remember a big ribbon cutting, reopening the second floor, and how people were supposed to be able to mill around in the Capitol and so forth.
Not so long ago. Funny thing about that. But, you know, we have a long tradition in this country. When you think about it, if you read history about sessions in Congress, you see sketches from the 19th century Congress, highly contentious debates with the public jamming in the gallery, watching everything, and they weren't always quiet. Sometimes they had to be removed. So we have a history in this country that even though democracy can be noisy and messy, that's what we have here. And the representatives of the people, they should deal with the people.
Blair Horner, let's go from the process to the substance, if you will. What do you make of the budget that did get passed?
Well, let me just mention this point we were just covering about how they shut the public out at the end is sort of a thematic problem, I thought, with the budget process overall, which you had sort of cosmetic openness. There were hearings around the governor's executive budget. There were budget conference committees where legislators reported to the public, but everything else was really hammered behind closed doors. And so when you do that, you lend itself to people not necessarily knowing what they were voting on at the end there. So in terms of overall budget, the governor achieved his political objectives. His political objectives that he ran on in 2010 was that he was going to close the deficit largely through cuts, not through revenues. And the people that rely on state services are going to really feel the pain starting very shortly.
From a good government point of view, this is a lopsided budget. How do you have a good budget process when you start the process by saying only some people will be around the table and only some issues will be discussed? Half of the budget wasn't even up for discussion. A good budget process is Everybody is around the table. It's an open process. Yeah, there are special interests. Their voices should be heard as well. And every single aspect of this budget should have been up for discussion. That's how business does it. Why can't government?
Okay, and then we were waiting for the budget to be done, according to many of the Albany leaders, until they could address things like redistricting and ethics reform. Do you expect to see that happen now that the budget is passed?
Well, that's been the tradition, and certainly there are a lot of large issues that we're looking to see move. One of the things that's contradictory is that we were not happy to see in the budget that the current gerrymandering redistricting process that it runs through a committee of the legislature was refinanced in the governor's budget. LAT4 was a budget item line, and we're looking to see the governor's redistricting bill move forward and have an independent commission, but LAT4 is still getting funding.
Blair Horner, is there a contradiction there? They're still talking about an independent committee, but they funded the old committee.
Yeah, I mean, we're very unhappy about that. I mean, that was the obvious leverage the governor had to try to force the legislature to come to the table and deal with his legislation. They have to, if they're going to put an independent commission together, they have to do it in the next month or so, or they won't have it done in time. So redistricting is going to have to come to a head, we think, in the next couple months. You mentioned before the ethics bill. There was a lot of talking about that early on in January and February, that there would be an agreement that never came together. We'll have to see what the governor does on making these things happen. It's clear from the budget process the governor drives the train. If he wants an ethics issue to come to a head in the next few weeks, I think he can force it to make it happen. And on redistricting, he lost one obvious point of leverage he had. We'll see what else he has as the session goes on.
Okay, Blair Horner, you've got the last word. Thank you so much for joining us from Albany. That's Blair Horner from the New York Public Interest Research Group. Susan Lerner from Common Cause. Always good to see you, too.
Thank you.
It is time for a break, folks. Still to come, Mayor Bloomberg's approval numbers take another dip. So what can his honor do to get back in New Yorkers' good graces? We'll ask the 4 members of our Reporters Roundtable. Stay with us.